You did not need it. You knew you did not need it, and you bought it anyway. Maybe it was late at night. Maybe you were bored. Maybe you had just had a rough day. Maybe it arrived 3 days later, and you felt nothing. Not satisfied, not excited, just a package on your doorstep and a quieter bank account. This is not a story about being irresponsible. This is a story about being human and about the invisible forces that have been steering your spending since the very first time you ever bought something. Let's start right before the purchase, not at the checkout, before it. Something happened earlier that day. Maybe it was a meeting that went badly, a conversation that left a sting. Maybe it was nothing dramatic, just the low, gray flatness of a Tuesday that felt like every other Tuesday. And somewhere in that feeling, a thought appeared, not a loud thought, a quiet one, a whisper that said, "You deserve something." And the phone was already in your hand. The app was already open. And before the rational part of your brain had a chance to weigh in, the order was placed. Here is what was actually happening. In that moment, you were not shopping. You were self-medicating, using a purchase the same way someone might use food, or a drink, or a scroll through social media, to shift a feeling, to move from uncomfortable to temporarily better. And it worked, for about 45 minutes. Then the feeling came back, and the account was lighter. This is emotional spending, and it is one of the most expensive habits most people never even recognize they have. Here is what is happening inside your brain when you make a purchase. The moment you decide to buy something, your brain releases dopamine, not when the item arrives, not when you use it, when you decide. The anticipation itself is the reward, which is why online shopping at midnight feels so compelling, and why the item that arrives 3 days later often feels underwhelming. The dopamine hit was in the decision, in the add to cart, in the confirm order. By the time the package arrives, the brain has already moved on. It is looking for the next hit. Now here is where it gets darker. The companies that sell to you, they know this. Every countdown timer, every limited stock warning, every you might also like suggestion, every one-day sale that somehow happens every week. These are not accidents. These are dopamine triggers, engineered, tested, refined, over decades, designed to get your brain to that decision moment before the rational part of you has time to ask, do I actually need this? You are not weak for falling for them. You are human, and they were built specifically for humans. So what actually pulls the trigger on an unnecessary purchase? There are 3 main forces, and you will recognize all of them. The first is emotion, stress, boredom, loneliness, sadness, even celebration. Emotion is the most powerful spending trigger that exists, because when you are feeling something intensely, buying something gives the feeling a direction. It feels like action, like control. When everything else feels uncertain, clicking buy feels decisive. And decisive feels good, even when the purchase does not. The second trigger is identity. You do not just buy products. You buy versions of yourself. The gym equipment that represents the person you want to become. The book that signals the kind of thinker you aspire to be. The outfit that belongs to a more confident version of you. None of these are bad aspirations, but the purchase does not create the identity. It just creates the feeling of it, temporarily, and temporary feelings require repeat purchases. The third trigger is social proof. Everyone has it. It is on sale. 4.8 stars, 10,000 reviews. Your brain is tribal. It is wired to follow the group. When millions of people have bought something, your brain interprets that as a signal that you should too. Not because you need it, but because belonging feels safe. and buying what everyone else has feels like belonging. Let's talk about what this actually costs. Not just in money, though the money is significant, in something more valuable. Clarity. Every unnecessary purchase creates a small amount of noise, a package to deal with, a thing to find space for, a charge that shows up on the statement, a mild dissatisfaction when the item fails to deliver what the feeling promised. And that noise, multiplied across dozens of purchases a month, becomes a kind of fog. A fog that makes it harder to see clearly what you actually want, what actually makes you feel good, what your money could be doing instead. The person who spends $200 a month on emotional purchases is not just spending $200. They are spending $2,400 a year on fog, on temporary feelings that are gone before the package arrives, on a version of themselves that never quite materializes. That money, redirected, could be a fully funded emergency fund, the beginning of an investment portfolio, the start of something that actually lasts. So how do you break it? Not with willpower. Willpower is unreliable. Not with guilt. Guilt makes emotional spending worse. With awareness. And one simple practice. Before any unplanned purchase, pause, 10 seconds, that is all. And ask yourself 3 questions. 1. What am I feeling right now? Name the emotion. Tired, bored, stressed, lonely, excited, restless. Just name it. 2. Am I buying this thing, or am I buying relief from this feeling? Honest answer. No judgment. 3. Will this item still feel necessary in 48 hours? If the answer to question 2 is the feeling, put the phone down. Go for a walk. Make a drink. Call someone. Do anything that addresses the feeling directly. Because a purchase never fixes a feeling. It just delays it. And the feeling, plus the item you did not need, will both still be there tomorrow. 10 seconds. 3 questions. That pause, practiced consistently, is worth thousands of dollars a year. Not because you stop buying things, but because you start buying intentionally. Things you actually want. Things that actually serve you. Instead of things that served a feeling that was gone in an hour. You are not someone who is bad with money. You are someone who was never taught to recognize what was happening in the moments between feeling something and spending something. That gap, that small, invisible gap, is where your financial life is actually decided. Not in the big decisions, not in the salary negotiations or the investment strategies, in the Tuesday nights when something felt off and the phone was already in your hand. Now you see it. Now you know what is happening in that moment. And knowing changes everything, because you cannot interrupt a pattern you cannot see. But once you see it, once you feel the trigger, before it pulls, you have a choice you did not have before. And that choice, made consistently, is worth more than any budget, more than any savings plan, more than any financial strategy, because it fixes the leak at the source. Your assignment this week. Every time you feel the urge to buy something unplanned, stop. Ask the 3 questions. 1. What am I feeling? 2. Am I buying the thing or the relief? 3. Will I still want this in 48 hours? Write down what you discover, not to judge yourself, to know yourself. Because the most powerful financial tool you will ever have is not an app. It is not a budget. It is self-awareness. If this video made you think about a purchase differently, share it with someone who needs to hear it. New video every week. Subscribe, and I will see you next week.